Get out the vote efforts now underway with the election coming up November 5th. Early voting in Illinois starts September 26th. And a lot of things going to be popping off between now and then. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell each and every weekday morning. We go live with America's Talking Network, and be sure to go to thecentersquare.com where you can see the latest articles, some of which we're going to be reviewing in this segment, ranging from the election to corruption allegations going to trial and so much more. Right here with The Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, an associate editor for Illinois with The Center Square. Thanks for being part of the program each and every weekday morning. But go over to thecentersquare.com where you can see the latest headlines, including with conventions in the rearview mirror, parties work to get out the vote. So head over and check this article out. A lot of this we talked about yesterday with Senate Minority Leader John Curran. Sitting down with us live, and a lot of you have seen that. But let's go to this headline here. With conventions in rearview mirror, the Illinois parties work to get out the vote. So obviously, Democrats officially nominated Kamala Harris for president last week in Chicago. The Republicans, they nominated Donald Trump in Milwaukee last month. The Center Square was on the ground covering both of those conventions, and you can go to America's Talking Network and check out some of the archives of the interviews. But also on Friday, the Illinois State Board of Elections, they certified the ballot for president, and that included keeping independent candidate Robert Kennedy on Illinois' ballot. Now, Kennedy, Friday, he endorsed Trump. He announced he's taking his name off of battleground states ballots while staying on in Illinois and other similar states that could negatively impact Harris. What kind of impact that's really going to have, it's a great question. I did ask Lisa Hernandez. She is the chair of the Illinois Democratic Party of Illinois, and she was talking Thursday last week at the convention about all of the ground game they've got going on. But when I asked her if there's any concern she's aware of Robert Kennedy endorsing Trump and how that could impact those who are undecided or disenfranchised Democrats, maybe, she says she wasn't aware of any of such concern. But she said that Democrats are hitting the ground with their teams to drum up support for their party's ticket up and down the ballot. And here's Lisa Hernandez on that issue. Let me make sure we've got this pumping through and go.
That's also included in the plan. So, I mean, we are really making a conscious effort. We really try to think of everything imaginable that would prepare us and be ready. And frankly, you know, it's 2 years in, and I'm speaking truthfully. Immediately, I saw the lack of presence from the party, especially downstate, and just the need for resources. So we're on it. We're on it.
So that the need for resources being across the states, but Democrats in Illinois also talked about sending some of their surrogates to other states. And you see headlines as well of how much money is going around, including Governor J.B. Pritzker using some of his political war chest in other states, including Arizona. But we'll look at some of the fund totals here for Republicans and Democrats. So Democrats who have supermajorities in both legislative chambers in Illinois, they've got a lot of money and they've got to secure those seats for their party. Republicans, on the other hand, in super minorities in both chambers. I talked with Senate Minority Leader John Curran yesterday, and he talked about how Republicans have to get out there, but he's seeing a bit of a sea change politically, and as far as some voters saying they're done with Democrats.
I represent a portion of Cook County, and that part of my district and the surrounding areas, voters are moving towards us. They have had enough of the constant corruption in Cook County and the city of Chicago, all run by Democrats, and that is pushing them towards the Republican Party. What we have to do is make sure that we continue to operate as a big tent and pull these people in. Don't push them away, pull them in. And that's ongoing.
So some of the various candidates who are running as Republicans in the Chicagoland area, including in Chicago, they're saying that they need support from the Republican Party. Traditionally, you don't see much competition, right? I mean, even in the primary, there were a bunch of uncontested seats with Democrats not being opposed by a Democrat and there being no Republicans on the primary ballot. Well, the slating process in Illinois was upheld this year, despite the state legislature passing a law saying if you didn't run in the primary, you can't run in the general election. This year, a Sangamon County judge said, well, that law is unconstitutional. You can't switch the rules up mid-election year. So that's not going into effect this year, meaning those slated candidates will be on the ballot. And they're in some, traditionally deep blue districts. But Republicans are out there trying to offer up choice to voters, one of those being Frederick Walls. He's a Republican running for the State House in Chicago. And he talked about how the Republican Party really needs to step up and help support financially, especially with advertisements, some of those Republicans in deep blue districts.
Someone high up in the state need to donate to campaigns like mine that, because we need, the Democrat candidates have a lot of funding. If we had the funding, or at least 10% of their funding, we could do some advertisement and it would help get our name out. Because a lot of people, last year in 2022, I ran, and I was knocking on doors that they had already mailed in their ballot because they didn't know they didn't know me. But I can only reach so many houses walking door to door. So that's the biggest thing, the biggest way that the Republican Party can help is donate to the candidates running.
So clearly Republicans asking for help from the Republican Party. How much money they've got to help, it's another question altogether. But Curran, he said that indeed that's a work in progress as well.
No, I think the Republican Party right now is in a growth phase, and the city of Chicago, Cook County, this is an area where we are growing more of a presence. We need to. That work is ongoing right now. What you're going to see in future elections is, more resources put into actually getting candidates on the ballot for the primary, rather than using the mechanism that is going to be expiring after this election cycle.
So again, he's referring to that slating process that Democrats tried to outlaw for this year, but a lower court said, no, can't do that. All right, so let's take a look at some of the financial situation here. The Democratic Party of Illinois, if you pull up Illinois Sunshine, great website that pulls in all of the state's Board of Elections data on campaign finance, you'll see cash on hand, Democrats have $1.3 million, almost $1.4 million. But listen, you look at the top 25 donors for all time. Governor J.B. Pritzker has given $14 million to the Democratic Party of Illinois. That's over several years. All right, $14 million. Friends of Mike Madigan, almost $13.4 million. Another fund associated with Mike Madigan, this is going way back to 2008, but $6+ million. So a lot of big one-person donors here, including Governor J.B. Pritzker, who recently just gave. And if you look at all donations, you can see that Governor Pritzker recently, is August 13th, gave $500,000 to the Democratic Party of Illinois. And clearly that helped boost it to nearly $1.4 million in cash on hand for the Democratic Party of Illinois. Now, those dollars obviously going to be going to different candidates, so it'll be transferred out. And how those dollars are used for campaigns, for vendors, and a variety of other things. But let's look at Illinois Republicans and how much money that they've got on hand. So pulling up from Illinois Sunshine, Illinois Republican Party, we'll just click on that link there. It shows that they've got about $745,000 cash on hand, all right? $745,000 compared to the Democrats, nearly $1.4 million. Some of the top donors, of course, Rauner governor back in the day, former Republican governor, $36.8 million. But that's way back, latest date was 2018. But if you look at all recent donations and monies going back and forth, the House Republican organization, that's the organization that helps fund state House candidates. You can actually click through there and see some of the donors and funds going out. And some of the other, small donors, I say, but still thousands of dollars. Dean White and even some corporate donations from the Boeing company and so on. So clearly, Republicans have some ground to make up for political contributions, and how those dollars are going to be used moving forward in Illinois. We'll definitely do what we can to keep track of that. So that's just one of the headlines you'll find at thecentersquare.com. Again, thecentersquare.com. Check that out. Some of the other things we're going to be keeping an eye on heading into the election. You've got the trial against former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. This story from my associate Brett Rowland, investigative reporter for the Center Square. Madigan seeks to limit evidence from prosecutors in corruption trial. This is according to the latest court filings in this case against Mike Madigan. There he is, a picture Brett took of Madigan outside of the federal courthouse at a recent hearing way back earlier this year. But let's just read from this story from Brett. Defense attorneys for former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan want to limit the evidence prosecutors can bring to a jury in his upcoming federal trial. Madigan's defense team said that he would not be able to get a fair trial if prosecutors presented all the evidence they wanted to show a jury. Here's a quote from the filing. With relentless pre-trial publicity already underway, Madigan's right to receive a fair trial, the government may now seeks to compound the problem by asking the court's permission to admit a laundry list of inadmissible, irrelevant, and unduly prejudicial evidence, allowing the government to elicit testimony about irrelevant, controversial topics like gaming legislation, sexual harassment allegations in Springfield, and the so-called Metro scandal will dispel any prospect of Mike Madigan receiving a fair trial. Goes on to say the defense team said the prosecutor's approach was wrong, saying that prosecutors are wrong in how they approach things. The government's kitchen sink approach, if this court accepts, would result in unfair prejudice to Madigan, allowing the jury to decide this case based upon emotion, bias, and persuasive propensity interferences. And will inevitably lead to several mini trials independent of the wide range allegations contained in the 117-page superseding indictment in this case. Then it goes into some of the background of Madigan. I think we all know he was the longest serving state house speaker. There was only a couple of years where he wasn't the speaker in the mid 90s. So clearly, facing allegations that he worked to benefit himself and his allies through no work jobs through ComEd in an effort to give ComEd some favorable legislation. So we'll be watching that trial closely because that case is set to go to trial in October, which that's right before the election. So how much headline will that grab? Will it be something that's talked about quite a bit in the lead up to the election? Obviously, we will be watching that closely as well. Some of the other headlines you can see at thecentersquare.com include the latest about the EV fire that happened in Normal with Rivian, the electric vehicle battery fire. And in particular, it's raising safety concerns. Nearly 60 vehicles went up in flames at Rivian's plant that were being prepared to be delivered. And this was over the weekend. But clearly, when it comes to the tax subsidies that Illinois taxpayers provided Rivian, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in those tax breaks, $827 million in tax incentives from the state of Illinois for Rivian. So how that's going to play out and the impact it has on the EV market, which a lot of consumers not necessarily leaping to electric vehicles. So just some of the other things that are there. Also, another headline, students returning to school, not just in Chicago, but you had schools return in the past few weeks. But performance, obviously something that people are going to be keeping an eye on. And you've got truancy and math scores and a whole host of other things that obviously are problematic for some people who, quite frankly, want their kids to get a good education in public school. but it comes at a taxpayer cost, about $16,000 on average across the state for sending kids to school, and that varies widely from Chicago down to Southern Illinois, how much it costs per student. But are the outcomes there? Are kids being able to read at grade level, do math at grade level? Are they even showing up to class? Obviously, those are some of the other things that important to watch. All right, so it is Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to wake up with us each and every weekday morning. Get those headlines at thecentersquare.com and stay up to date with what's going on in and around Illinois.